Howdy.
For the Pure Steel Podcast. Brand new setup. Look at this. All this hard work. Hey, thank you, Wyatt, for all the wiring. And dream come true. We're on a big screen. We get to interact with you guys. And a little bit too close. We're going to figure that out.
Yeah, a little bit.
My leg is touching his leg at the moment.
You didn't have to tell people.
Not in a weird way.
You didn't have to tell people.
No. But they got to know. We're all family. Hey, we're all family. We got a huge guest tonight, Carl Johnson. You've probably seen him on Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters. He's a world-renowned paranormal investigator. He's one of the best minds in the paranormal. And the guy, I talked to him before the show for a while. He's a sweetheart. Talked to him for a while. Great guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Second hour, we got Jason Bertram of Wisconsin Paranormal coming on. Can't wait. We've had him on the show before. We did it just strictly audio. Now we're obviously beautiful faces. We're visual now. And like always, shout out Lit Beard Company. Lit Beard Company is the best beard company on the planet. You can go on their website, litbeardco.com. Get anything you need. Beard balms, beard oils, beard combs, and shirts. It's a veteran-owned business, wax-tip bottles, handcrafted, and it's, what else can I say?
What else can you say?
I'm pumped. This is going to be a fun show. Other news, Brewers suck.
Normally, yeah.
Yep, Packers pulled a close one off 2 times. Things are tough. But hey, the world champion Bucks are coming back. I think this upcoming week.
Is it already that soon?
Yeah, basketball's here.
That's nuts.
What's new with you?
Not a whole lot. I'm spending a lot of time working lately.
How's that going? One day at a time?
Yep. But other than that, it's same shit.
Yeah, I heard. I didn't make it, but Bearded Rebellion Wisconsin chapter had a great showing for Ruck 22.
Really?
They donated a ton of money, and they had a lot of fun. DQ and Grady both did the ruck with them, and hey, shout out. I could do the walk, but not as good as Have you seen DQ's beard? Not as good as him. Guaranteed not as good as him. But if you are tuning in live, thank you guys very much. And yes, I think we're going to hop right into it.
Yeah,
everybody. Please put your hands together for Carl L. Johnson. Welcome to the show, Carl. Appreciate your time. And
it's good to be here.
How are you tonight? Doing good?
Well, yeah, I've had worse nights. I mean, I have an ongoing throat issue, which makes me cough. Not a spontaneous cough, but clearing my throat a lot. So, it hasn't taken my voice away recently, but other than that, pretty good. It's like mega allergies that just don't quit, and I hear they're proliferate. That they're all around. And,
yeah, I suffer from severe allergies as well.
I had an allergy test a month ago. I found I'm allergic to quite a few things, so that explains part of it. So that there could be salvation. It could lessen at some point.
Yeah. We got a bunch of comments coming in already, but right away, I promised a guy, the vice president of the Wisconsin Bearded Rebellion Club, DQ, his mom, June, will be watching tomorrow. She's 75 years old, and she's a big fan of you.
Hi, June. Oh, thank you. I appreciate the support and your interest. Hi, June. Hopefully we'll meet sometime. That is plausible.
Yeah. Let's get right into it. How long have you been investigating the paranormal?
40 something years, about 49 years. I know it sneaks up on one because I started as a teenager, so.
Well, when you started as a teenager, you started in one of the most, I guess, as of now, one of the most notorious homes in the world, as in the Harrisburg, the Conjuring House. I'm a constant professional, Carl. I'm going to call it the Harrisburg House, right? That's
Harrisville.
Harrisville, House on the Hill, right? That's what they.
Yes.
Homework.
Haunted house on the hill.
So I guess like as an 18-year-old kid going into that, obviously Hollywood is Hollywood. It's never going to be exactly what happened there. And
right.
What was it like as an 18-year-old kid going into this house? I mean,
well, it was my first residential case for an investigation. I was a member of a group based at Rhode Island College, and we had exterior sites. We wanted to get into going to people's houses and investigating, ghost hunting, trying to get to the bottom of what was happening in, people's situations. And to that effect, my brother, who was also a member of this group, my identical twin brother Keith, he placed an ad in a local periodical, just advertising us as a ghost hunting group, a team that didn't charge and would come out and assess this paranormal situation. 3 weeks after he placed that ad and it was published, we received a message from a Mrs. Carolyn Perrin in Harrisville, Rhode Island. She said some strange things were happening in their house, their farmhouse that they had purchased less than 2 years before. So we were invited to come in. And boy, we weren't disappointed. As soon as we pulled up in that driveway, I felt something was up. It's like, I just feel like something's watching us. A big eye is watching us. I can't shake it. We all felt that way. And we saw some strange things that first day we were there. Interestingly, the phenomena that I experienced there, people are still having that happen. All those years later, 48 years later, it's still happening there. One thing I experienced was, we were conducting the interview process with Mrs. Perrin and the girls. They had 5 girls, and I heard some rattling sounds upstairs, and I said, "Excuse me, do you have company? Because I'm hearing people upstairs." They said, "No, we hear that almost every day. We hear people walking up there." I said, "Okay." I waited for the interview process to resume. Our case manager, Donna, was conducting the interview with my brother, and I kind of laid back, and I made my way upstairs. I got to catch this. All right, as soon as I got upstairs, the noises ceased. It really sounded like somebody was moving around up there. And I was probing around, and I happened to see something out of my peripheral vision, the right side, something dark. So reflexively, I turned and looked, and this blackness or darkness is actually kind of the absence of light, like a hole cut in the fabric of reality. Something was coming down the hallway. Yeah, there's like kind of a hallway configured by the girls' bedrooms. And my first thought, it was so real. My first thought was, there's a fire in the house. I'm going to smell smoke. It's a backdraft. There's smoke coming at me. So I looked at it and I kind of closed my eyes, and it seemed to envelop me, and then it was gone. I didn't feel anything. Didn't smell anything. So I cannot think of what natural phenomenon could cause that. Just this darkness coming down the hallway at me. And so I went back downstairs quietly, and I looked at my brother, and I gave him the twin look, like something's up there, And what happened shortly after that is we got a tour of the house, and when we were in one of the girls' bedrooms, I think it was Nancy, there was a window that was jammed open. The husband and the father, the head of the house, Roger Perrin, is a very rugged guy. He said he tried to close that window. He couldn't get it closed. It was jammed open. Now, that was August of 1973. The rest of the house was sweltering. So I didn't know why that room was cold, kind of like an ice box, even though the window was open. No draft. I tried to shut it, couldn't budge it. My brother tried an experiment with light provocation. My brother said he recited a biblical psalm. I think the 23rd Psalm. And then he said the name of Jesus. By gum, I don't know if it was just good timing, but that window right on cue slammed shut. When he said Jesus, that window slammed shut. We all jumped.
Whoa.
And we looked, and Nancy, whose bedroom it was, she had 3 welts on her face, 3 or 4 welts. It looked like she'd been slapped.
Well,
It looked just like she'd been slapped by hand.
Well, 3 is the mocking of the Trinity, correct? So
And that's what we equated it with. I believe there were 3 marks, and it's striations that look like finger marks. So we weren't disappointed. We got our paranormal activity fix, because a lot of times going into a haunted house, and we didn't have that much experience at that point. Not much happens while you're there. You hear about it. People say, "Oh, all hell broke loose after you folks left," but no, it was happening while we were there on the site. And we told the Perrin family that we would not abandon them; we'd stick with them. But we were interested in scientific measurements and documenting. We wanted a legitimate investigation. My brother was a big hit too. See, between my brother and I've always been the evil twin. He's the good twin. I'm the evil one. I don't know why that is.
Top bad cop.
is it because you're a demonologist?
Well, we're both demonologists, but he's also an angelologist. And I guess it's because I'm the more daring and experimental one.
You're the wild child. Carl, you're the wild child. Just come on and say it.
Yeah.
I am too. Don't worry about it. It's all right.
Oh, you know what it's like then.
All right.
Be on that other side of the fence. Well, my brother then, he had shoulder length. Well, we both did. He had shoulder length blonde hair, but his was very fluffy and parted in the middle. And he had a white muslin shirt on, and he was carrying a Bible. And though Judy, one of the daughters, she looked out the window and she saw Keith. Judy or Nancy, I think it was Judy. She looked at the window and saw Keith getting out of the car, and she said, "Mom, Jesus is here." He must have been radiant. He looked so holy.
Well, if the spirit inside heard that must have pissed it off right away, right?
I think so. Yeah, Keith has always been a menace to the wicked spirits. I never equated that house with a demonic haunt. I never thought it was demonic. I just thought eerie, pervasive, and aware of us. I just didn't feel it was anything so menacing that it could drive people out. But that was easy for me to say because I wasn't residing there. I still don't think it was a demon in there. It's popular to say it was demonic.
Yes, it's
with the story and all
that. What do you think it was then? I guess.
I think the house accrued memories. The house was built in 1736. I think it had been there so long and had seen births and deaths and a lot of history. American history was one of the stages in that area for King Philip's War in 1671, 1672. So I think the house became something of a living organism. It remembers people. The house seems to like me. If people have a poor attitude and you kind of challenge the haunting, say, "I don't think anything's going to happen here. Let it try and get me," they'll have a bad experience. They'll grow ill or something will fly across the room. They'll be chased out. If people come in with a positive attitude, they may experience paranormal phenomena, but they'll have a good experience. So I think the house just remembers people. It's had centuries to take on memories through principles we don't yet understand. It's a sentient being in its own way. So that's my theory about the haunting there. I don't think nothing tragic transpired in that house that we ever found. I mean, there's a story about the demon witch Bathsheba Sherman. Bathsheba Sherman, Thayer Sherman, was a neighbor. She was utterly harmless. There's nothing remarkable about her. At most, she would be considered eccentric, but she never made potions and, other terrible things she was supposed to have done. But that was a cool sounding name, so that became acquainted with the negative spirit there. Bathsheba Sherman probably never resided in the house. She must have visited it sometime because she was a neighbor. But there's the Black Book of Barrington, or rather Burrillville, I should say. The town of Burrillville, and Harrisville is a village in Burrillville, and they recorded everything, like if a cow died mysteriously, or a horse was stolen. That went in the Black Book of Records, and there was no mention of Bathsheba Sherman. Certainly, they would have recorded that because every arrest, every foible, is in that book. Because there weren't that many people there, they had to talk about something.
Right.
So Elise Gianmarco Carlson, who heads Panorama Paranormal, she's our director, well, her and me. She's done a lot of research. My brother has done remarkable research on that house, and There's just nothing, no skeletons in the closet, no real evil thing happened there. Not that was recorded. I'm sure there were skirmishes between the Native Americans and the white settlers, but for reasons not totally understood, the house is very haunted. It might be the geography. It might be lime deposits underneath, just something about the way it's situated on a hill. So many people have lived there through the years, the Richardsons, right down to the parents. The parents family were there when we were called in.
Well, the parent family resided there for a long time, correct?
Yeah. Well, you see, we lost out on that investigation basically because, for better for worse, I contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren. Then we were acquainted with Ed and Lorraine. We had a friendly association with the Warrens. And we were never in over our heads. We were having a good investigation. We didn't see the parents for a couple of weeks. Carolyn was on the phone with me every day, giving me a call, updating me, Mrs. Perrin. And she wanted us to come back because she said the activity there was increasing. So our team from Rhode Island College, we called PIRO, Parapsychological Investigatory and Research Organization. So we paid another house call, and a dramatic change in about 2.5 weeks. Carolyn Perrin, she was a slender lady anyway. She had lost weight. She was not looking well. She looked haggard. She looked like she hadn't slept or eaten since we'd seen her. Something was getting at her. Roger, was very stalwart and at first doubtful of the paranormal influence there. Roger had scratches on his arm that he had woken up with. He was unsettled by that. So we thought it might be a nice idea. We had a team meeting and said, let's contact Ed and Lorraine. We never felt we were in over our heads. We just thought it would be a nice professional touch to benefit from the Warrens' vast experience and consult them. So I remember being on the phone with Ed Warren. He volunteered to come to the site, he and Lorraine. And I said, well, it's my understanding we're going to be working together on this case. And he said, oh, absolutely. I said, would you like our case files? Please get them to me right away. Well, the Warrens came in September, third week of September, 1973. I remember I was part of the tour showing them around. In later years, Mrs. Warren would deny that there were any other paranormal investigators on the scene at that time. But there's photographic proof that we were there. I'm in a few pictures taken that day.
Yeah, I got a couple pictures. I got my email.
Yeah. And we thought it was the start of something big. Oh, now we're working with the Warrens. We're, taking a lot of photographs and recording. Well, I didn't hear from Carolyn Perrin. I didn't get my customary call the next day. I thought she'd tell me, oh, what a wonderful time, meeting Ed and Lorraine. And days went by and I was not hearing from Mrs. Perrin. I seemed to be her main contact. She thought I was in charge of our team because I had a deep voice and I guess I looked like I knew what I was doing and gave that impression. So we had a team meeting and we decided, well, either it's very serious and the Warrens are helping them, they're very busy, or the case has been resolved. In any circumstance, we're not hearing from the Perrins anymore. All right. So I believe it was something like 16 days later. We were now into October of 1973, and Carolyn did call me. She apologized for having been out of touch. Carolyn told me that the Warrens advised her and her husband, Roger, that they could be of no assistance unless they were the only investigators there. They had to take charge. They had told the parents, we were a bunch of college kids. We couldn't do any good there. We'd just be in the way. So it's like, okay, hello and goodbye. Nice association for a while. And it actually did not end well, the association between the Warrens and the Perrins, that brief time. When the Warrens took over that case, that investigation, it actually ceased being an investigation and became an intercession, if you understand the difference.
What is the difference? I guess I'm not familiar.
Well, Lorraine, the elegant Lorraine Warren, Lorraine Warren had a vision, and she assessed the house as being demonically infested. There's a demon in the house. So that's how we're going to approach it. So they're not conducting an investigation. They already made up their minds what's there. This demon witch, which they just happened to pin on the real life personage of innocent Bathsheba Sherman. And so they approached it as demonic haunt. And of course, that got Carolyn all the more wound up. Carolyn was impressionable, sensitive, empathic. And
Well, being malnourished too. I mean, getting
something
getting
was
that
up.
information.
Yeah. Now, I'm not totally defaming what the Warrens did there. I suppose I could, but that was their methodology, with which I did not agree at the time. I thought we could do more good interviewing them, documenting what was happening, not just assuming it's, a hostile haunt and just scary, inconvenient for the people living there, but not hostile. So a seance was arranged, which I also did not agree with. But at this point, I had no say in it. I was no longer involved in the situation. The seance was conducted the night before Halloween, October 30th, traditionally Devil's Night. And I thought that when I heard about it, that's ill-advised to do a seance at Carolyn, so susceptible. Well, present was Ed and Lorraine Warren. We're Ed and Lorraine Warren, a medium, a psychic medium, and clergy, a priest that the Warrens knew. They brought him in. And Roger came home to that and didn't know they were going to have a seance, but he said, oh, let's go on with it, see what happens. He didn't like the idea. Things went wrong during that seance. I mean, the paranormal is a viable force. Things do happen through psychokinetic energy. It's all in the study of parapsychology. And sometimes strange things do occur. Well, Carolyn, during the course of the seance, the medium was trying to bring in the force. I don't think that's a good idea, because what reliable answers can you get from a supposed spirit? If it even exists, what's it going to tell you? Like, oh, I'm here, I'm all right, or I'm taking over the house. Well, what happened was Carolyn started to mumble, and it sounded like she was speaking in tongues from what I heard. She's speaking incoherently. Then Carolyn was flung out of her chair physically. Her body sailed about 9 feet away into the next room, the adjoining room. She was unconscious on the floor. People thought she died. Roger went over to immobile Carolyn, over to his wife. He hurried over to her, calling her name. Regretfully, Ed Warren intervened. Ed Warren stood there and told him, "You must never touch the possessed." So Roger stood up and hauled off and, smacked Ed. Ordered them out of the house. He said, "That's it. No more paranormal groups in this house. No more mumbo jumbo." I said, I'm concerned for my wife's safety at this point. So that was the end of that association, with the Warrens. And I'm not saying it wasn't a good story and a good movie and based on a real situation, but it just didn't happen the way you see it in the movie. And this isn't a bash the Warrens. I'm just like a police report. I'm just relating what happened there. So that ended the Warrens, friendship with the Perrons. But he did afterwards conduct an interview with Carolyn Perron, which was pretty strange. I thought he was not allowed in the house anymore. So I don't know how they got together for that. But I think the real story is just as fascinating as what happened in the movie. The interaction between people, the falling out. The Warrens meant well, apparently. We meant well, but we're not represented in the movie. Actually,
you should have.
Yeah, I kind of thought so.
I'm going to say this right now. Brad Pitt would have played Carl Johnson.
Yes, that's who I had in mind. Yeah. I have a saying, like, truth is stranger, but not nearly so palatable as is fiction. People like the fantasy. There are still people who insist that movie, that's the credible story. Because Mrs. Warren said, that movie is as true to life as any motion picture could be. No, well, not really, no. But I will tell you what's genuine about that movie is that the portrayals by, respectively, Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren, Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren. If you see that movie, it's like watching Ed and Lorraine. It's a fictional account, of course. It's entertainment. I enjoyed the movie. And I actually was nostalgic because that scene where they show Ed and Lorraine meeting Carolyn Perron, she's at a lecture hall. The Warrens are presenting a lecture. And that's like watching Ed and Lorraine. That's how they were together. That's how they bantered, communicated with each other, spoke to people. Fascinating lecture. You wanted it to go on. If it was an hour lecture, you wanted it to be 2 hours. And that's that scene where somebody in the audience raises their hand and says, so you're ghost hunters. What do people call you? And Ed said, kooks. Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren. Now that's how they were. He's got his hair done like Ed Warren, the sideburns and all that. Well, it was the 1970s. Heavens, I had long sideburns. Even the women had sideburns back then.
Yeah.
A few I remember. And so that was succinctly our experience with the Perrin family. I didn't know I'd ever see them again. My brother stayed in touch with them. And I'd been in the house several times afterwards when it was under the ownership of, I don't know, Norma Sutcliffe. Norma Sutcliffe was the successive owner. She bought the house from the Perrins. Parents were there for 10 years. They were not driven out of their house. They sank their savings into that house. And they had Andrea Perrin wrote a book chronicling her experiences, three books, House of Darkness, House of Light. Now, I'm not sure the chronology is off with Andrea Perrin's account. Like we supposedly showed up in a van unannounced. No, that's not true. Carolyn Perrin invited us, and our team never had a van. And Rhode Island College wouldn't give us any money for that.
Well, what do you have for a vehicle? Hot rod in the 70s?
Yeah, the 70s. So an interesting time of life. And I was almost portrayed in that movie. At least that's what I heard. But I was going to be a bad guy. It sounds fantastical, but an insider, somebody with a scoop, told me, they're going to have somebody play you, and it's not going to be good.
Oh, no.
And the producer knows about it. The director, Tony DeRosa-Grund, James Wan, that's supposedly real. And I said, that doesn't sound right. Like, what could they have me do? He said, bad things. So I had to protest. I had to say, no, I do not want myself represented in this movie, unfavorably represented. I mean, they could change one letter in my name, like spell my name with a K instead of a C and get away with it. Now, I don't know if somebody would have really played me, but I had it on good authority that they were going to. So I said, no, I'll spend the rest of my career in the paranormal denying that, to the one person, the janitor in the audience, who comes to see me. That's what I'm going to be doing for the next 30 years. I'm going to be like saying, no, that didn't happen that way. No, it didn't. Well, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah. So, obviously, you didn't get portrayed in the movie, but you have been portrayed as yourself in many other shows.
Yes.
As the Ghost Hunters, and you were in Ghost Adventures with Zach and Aaron.
Yes.
I love the show Ghost Adventures. I know it's TV, but it's great entertainment. What was it like working with the energy around Zach Baggins and Aaron Goodwin and Billy and I can't remember the other guy's name.
I don't either, but I remember Billy and Zach and Aaron. Well, I did 2 episodes of Ghost Adventures. The first one was chronicling an investigation at the Conjuring House, the house in Round Top Farm, the house in Harrisville. And their purpose was to recreate as closely as possible to emulate our original investigation using the old reel-to-reel recorder, equipment that was available in 1973. I thought it would be perfunctory. I said, these guys are, well known in the field. I'll do it. Won't be bad. I met Zach, and he said, excuse me, I brought Elise, my friend Elise was there with me, director of Panoramic Paranormal. She said, oh, I don't know if I can meet people. So you come with me. I introduced her to everybody. She had a ball. And so Zach said, I want to talk to Carl alone. And I thought he wanted to discuss blocking, how we're going to film it. He took me out to the bridge, and he told me, I just want to say it's an honor to work with you, Carl. I've been looking forward to this for months, and there's no one I'd rather work with. You set the bar for us. I am thrilled to be working with you. And I'm like, oh, yes, thank you. I like you too. It was good to hear that. Very encouraging. Somebody in the, that didn't start all the years ago that I did, to hear this from him. Because ghost hunting wasn't all that popular when my brother and I started. It was not good. It's got its bad reputations in school. Oh, the ghost. They look for ghosts, but people were scared too. I remember walking through the village where I grew up, and people would close their shades when I walked by. It's true, because I was a ghost hunter. I let it be known. Now it's all the rage, of course. It's popular. I'm popular because of it, but wasn't always that way. So to hear these things from Zach to bring me up to speed, like, you know, saying I set the bars, well, thank you. Now I am really into the scene. And he actually started the investigation at the Harrisville house a night earlier than scheduled, because we experienced something. We were doing what's called the hero shot for the opening. They had a drone overhead and filming from all different angles, us approaching the house. It was Zach, Aaron, Billy, my brother, and myself walking up the hill towards the house for dramatic effect. And while we were doing one of those takes, I happened to glance up, and in the screened-in porch, I saw something black move, you know, just darkness. I thought it was one of the technicians with a duffel, just something black move. And Zach said, Carl, did you see that? And I said, yeah, I certainly did. The black thing moved over there. I thought it was one of your guys. He said, no, nobody should be in there. So I ran up there fast as I could. Nobody was in that porch, and they couldn't have gotten away that soon. So Zach decided to start the investigation one night early. My brother and I and Aaron Goodwin, I hit it off with him so good. It was like he always knew me. And we're at our consoles and taking notes of the panoramic camera. And all of a sudden, Zach says, I want Carl up here. So I said, look at my head. Excuse me, gentlemen. I went upstairs, and so we conducted the investigation. And that's in the episode, just as it happened. You know, I don't think anything was contrived. Nothing was made up, and it couldn't have been. You know, it was all spontaneous. At one point in that episode, in that investigation, and I'll tell you, if you ever get a television show, you realize that you forget the camera's running. So you better watch what you say or how you act, because I actually forget this is being filmed. I told Zach all those years ago when I was first here, I felt the house wanted to speak through me. I kept getting that nagging feeling the house wants to talk through me. I'm not a psychic medium, at least I've never been called one, but I, not to my face. And I said, I want to let it, but I shouldn't. I don't know if that's irresponsible. Of course, Zach said, Carl, please let the house speak through you. Don't go yet, please. So I just opened my mind and let the house speak through me. Now, I was never taken over. I could have left at any time, but I just said what the house was. I didn't know what I'd said until I watched the actual episode. House was saying, I thought the house was going to say something like get out, but it was saying, don't go, don't leave. Maybe because Zach had said that, but it said, don't go. Wow. So they were very impressed. It was a very dramatic, high tension moment. And they, wow, this is wonderful. I mean, this is really happening. And there's lightning outside because there was a terrific thunderstorm, and which Elise got caught in the rain. You know, it was quite a night. So after all this drama, Zach and Aaron and Billy leave the room and leave me all alone there by myself. I said, okay, you know, what do we do for an encore, you know? But I was glad I was there alone, because that darkness, that dark thing, that shadow came into the room. And fortunately, it came out on film. Billy caught it on his camera. Because I said, they're not going to believe me. They'll think I'm supposed to say this, that the darkness came in. Right. That dark thing that's very hard to describe because it's rather amorphous. It doesn't go through walls like osmosis. It actually follows egresses. It goes down the stairwell when it manifests. It comes into a room. It winds around, can follow people. But to my knowledge, it doesn't go through doors or walls. And so it was a darn fun and intriguing investigation. I just loved working with those guys. I remember when we started, I told myself, one thing I will not say, I'll never say on air is dude. Because they're famous for that, and taps, you know, especially
dude run on taps.
Yeah, Brian Hanwa, I was there for that. I saw him and the cameraman David run by me. Dude, run! Dude. Aaron, so I said, dude. I will not say that. So we're upstairs. The hair on my arms is standing up. The electromagnetic field detector I'm holding, EMF gate, antique one, it's starting to dance around wildly. And what do I say? I go, dude, catch this. 3 Fortunately, they didn't have that in the final edit where I said, "Dude." Yeah.
Oh, I wish they would have.
It brings what's exciting. It brings the dude out in you. You become a dude.
Yeah.
Things like that happen. So it was overall a very very enjoyable educational experience. That bridge where Zach and I were speaking, it's very rickety. That's the original bridge. I was there when it wasn't new when I first went there in 1973. I remember standing on one edge and the board went up and Zach stood on it. Boom! It was like a seesaw.
Ooh.
I said, "Look, let's stand on opposite ends at the same time. Let's step on." I asked Zach, "How much do you weigh?" And I was like, 30 pounds less than me, so I shouldn't have asked. No, never mind. I believe you. So we balanced ourselves on that bridge. And interestingly, the next year, I crashed through that bridge. I was visiting the current owners. We were looking for a cemetery out in the woods. There with Corey and Jennifer Heinzen, who owned the house. And, of course, Elise. Elise was a cemetery conservator, and she wanted to document the cemetery. Supposedly a giant is buried in that cemetery. He is. And very, very tall man, legendary, and we don't know much about him. But a giant is interred in that cemetery. Something that was supposedly about 8 feet tall.
Oh.
Okay, so we're looking for the cemetery. We had to traverse the bridge to get to the woodland path. I crashed through the bridge. I kind of did a little hop to let Corey go by. And I went, suddenly I find myself up to my shoulder in bridge. I mean, I barely had a chance to be startled. And Corey is saying, he's a big, rugged guy. Oh, much like you. And he's like, "Oh, Carl, are you all right?" I said, "I'm fine. I could get out." You know, I was going to pull myself out, but he offered me his hand. So I said, "Yeah, okay, pull me out." But it's probably a better thing that he did assist me, because if I had pushed myself out and broken again, there's a 12-foot drop into water and rocks, and I don't know what the result would be. There wasn't enough water down there to break my fall, just enough to break me. So it's a good thing he helped me out. But so I have interesting history with that bridge. Yeah. So that's basically my summation.
Is the bridge okay?
What's that, please?
Is the bridge okay?
It's been somewhat supported. Yeah, it's been done over. Not the whole thing. I still wouldn't hopscotch over it, but yeah, it's okay. So we just went. I mean, I'm lucky. My patella, my kneecap could have gone up to my thigh. I mean, I could have been injured. We're
happy you made it through.
Yeah, I just put my arms out and stopped my descent, and I'm really up to my shoulders in bridge. Interesting.
So obviously working with Ghost Adventures, you also did a lot of work with ghost hunters.
Yes,
and working
2 years.
And I would say probably the godfathers of paranormal on TV. Grant Wilson and Jason Hawes. Is that how you say it, Hawes?
Hawes.
And you did a lot of work with them. Like you were at Eastern State Penitentiary with them when obviously Dude Run happened. And
that's where that happened. Yeah, we were there 2 nights. I was there 2 nights at Eastern State Penitentiary. Yeah.
So what was the difference, like working with those guys? How many years did you work with them? It's like 5, right?
Well, on the TV show 2, but altogether 8. 8 years since I joined TAPS, and TAPS was nascent in its early time. And I met Jason Hawes. That's before we had headquarters, so we met at a Mr. Donuts, kind of like a Dunkin', and we hit it off right away. We were friends, and of course we discussed the Warrens at length, our experiences with Ed and Lorraine. So yeah, it was a good interview, good start. And this was before the television show, so we were looking around for cases and all that. But actually, the television show also caused division between us, because it became all about production. We lost some of that magic. I mean, it created a phenomenon, and it became larger than life. And I certainly had good experiences, met interesting people, went to some fascinating places. But we kind of lost something in the translation too. The home quality of going into people's houses. They kind of lost that along the way. So I left after 2 years. I just didn't. I just stopped coming. I didn't come back. No real falling out. Except later on, people were asking me, "So why did you get fired from TAPS?" I didn't. No, I don't think I was fired from TAPS. But I just left.
Wild child.
yeah, I just didn't want the bad feeling of saying, like a meeting and I'm resigning. So I just faded away. There were some, divisions and um, in the way things were handled, technical issues and too many reshoots. But I had a good association with Grant and Jason. I just got to know them less and less as it went on.
Yeah.
Instead of getting to know them better, it came to a zenith around 2004 and 2005. And then by 2006, we were starting to become distant. It was all about the television show. And plus being under contract, I couldn't viably go to people's houses and conduct my own investigation. So I said, it's time to go. If I had to do over again, I probably would have done several more episodes. And yeah, I'm sure I would have investigations episodes, and I would have announced my departure. But instead, I just faded away. I thought that was the best way back then. But I would have done a little differently. I do miss those days, of course, at times. Multifarious experiences, and you're always meeting somebody interesting. It's a lot of waiting around too.
Yeah.
A lot of, okay, we got to shoot. Okay, we got to do that over again. Say it the same way. Yeah, so many funny stories. I think what goes on behind the camera is just as interesting. It's what happens in front.
I can believe that. Especially the characters that they have. Obviously, Jay and Grant, they're good joke. They like to joke around from what I see. And obviously, Steve Gonslaves, right? That's how you say it?
Gonzalez.
Yeah. He seems like to be a very
interesting character. Silent. He was my friend. He was very complimentary. I say was my friend. I just don't see those guys anymore. Sometimes we'll bump into each other at conventions, and it's very pleasant. I mean, I could spend a half an hour talking about the bad of ghost hunters.
I don't want to get into that. No,
I could spend an hour talking about the good of taps and ghost hunters. But, it's the human element. Going to have, mixed experiences.
Well, the production is it's all for the TV show.
Yes, that dominates, of course. They've got a schedule, and it is hard not to crack up sometimes. Especially if it's like 1 a.m. We were at the Lighthouse Inn, and I believe it was New London, Connecticut. One of our early episodes, and we were at a pub, and the band decided to do 2 extra sets, so we were waiting to start our television show, the investigation that's going to be documented. And so, getting kind of restless. And the camera, one of the camera guys is saying, "Come on, get out there and dance. Come on, we want to see you dance." I said, "Oh, I can dance. I just choose not to." Come on, Carl, get out there and dance. I said, "I'm not going to get out there and dance." So the patrons there, are all in a circle there. They're watching us, the people on the television people. My brother gave me a shove. I'm in my TAPS uniform and everything. Gave me a shove, and there I am in the middle of the dance floor. So I started dancing. I did a hoot nanny.
There you go.
Talk about sense of humor. I don't know if it was Jason or Grant who engineered this. Grant had kind of a Machiavellian sense of humor. Then suddenly, this is just on the cusp of YouTube. Suddenly, there's this thing on the internet called Dancing Demonologist. It didn't get in the episode. I was actually hoping some of that interpersonal footage would get on because I was slow dancing with Donna LaCroix, and we were talking about, how we got into the paranormal. I thought that was a very good scene, personal element, human element. But instead, they got it on. I don't think it was even YouTube, but they're showing Dancing Demonologist. Fortunately, that is not found anywhere because it was pretty sad looking. Well, funny. Yeah. And then that same night, Jason is admonishing me for dancing, like when we're supposed to be setting up for an investigation. And it's comical because I say, "Oh, how'd you know about that?" He said, "I saw you out there." You want to come out and dance, you do that in your own time, And we kept cracking up. We were trying to get through that. And when he said, "You want to dance, you come here on your own, and you come in your own time." And I just, something about the way he said that, we just kept laughing, and we had to retake it and retake it. 1 in the morning, we get a little punchy at that point. But it's a good memory. That was really an overnight. When I say overnight, you know, we haven't been to bed. Let's go out for breakfast. It's light out. That kind of overnight.
Wow.
But we got a lot done.
How does one become a demonologist? That's it's a good question, I think.
One part of the formula is referring to yourself as a demonologist until people take you seriously. How I became a demonologist.
You think I could pull that off if I just like now on Pure Steel podcast with Austin, a demonologist, Louis Schreier, our demonologist, Austin and Louis? You think that's possible?
Man.
I think you could with enough press, and you got to look really serious in your pictures. Yeah. I have
we played sports in high school. We don't smile in pictures. Still don't.
No, well, you try not to smile. This is my book, Shadow Realms Demonology Handbook, available through Amazon.com or through the authors, and it's precisely 300 pages. So that's a little bitty picture of me there, but there are more pictures inside. And that is me with Lana Jan Brock, who's an accredited theologian, and she was my co-author. And I thought it'd be a nice touch to have Lana maybe write an introduction for me. I had Tom D'Agostino, noted historian in this region, write the introduction. But Lana ended up writing about half the book. And she's got a style to her. And we do some point counterpoint. It's a series of essays and case history and theory. And it's just what the title implies. It's a handbook, so you can bring it on an investigation. Oh, how did this Carl Johnson handle that? You know, things that worked for me, things that probably weren't so successful. You know, just my experiences. But how I actually became a demonologist, my first residential case was the farmhouse in Harrisville on Round Top Road, Round Top Farm. My first case that I did apart from that group at Rhode Island College was a full-blown case of demonic possession. I believe I was 21 or 22 years of age at the time. And all of a sudden I'm in this demonic situation. It found me. After that, every case I got called into, and people started consulting me, like, let's call in the demonologist. You know, it was some malevolent case, something like, we can't touch this. We're not prepared. Who says I am? I'll prepare. And then after several of those situations, somebody showed me a magazine article. Hey, Carl, you're in an article in this magazine. Oh, really? And it said, Carl Johnson, the demonologist. I said, okay, that has a ring to it.
Well, that goes to the thing. All publicity is good publicity, right?
Yeah. Well, within margins, yeah.
Yeah.
It can be. Well, it helps me get, if I'm at a restaurant or something, you know, if I want some space, all I do is start talking demonology, and people get up and move. You know, they get a little spooked by it. But some people come up and start asking questions too, like I'm a doctor or something. But no, that first case in Providence, Rhode Island, that it was demonic. First, my first residential case, as I said, was the Conjuring House. But then I'm thrown into a demonic situation. I was friends with this family. I had gone to Puerto Rico and lived there for 4 months to do some research, and didn't accomplish too much, but I did see some interesting things. And so I met a Puerto Rican family, Puerto Rican and Dominican. I became friendly with them. They lived in the west end of Providence in the Armory District. And one of the family members, the son, he was 14 years of age. He was undergoing some strange episodes where he seemed taken over by another personality. So, I can't pass this up, because the family invited me to stay overnight and observe him. I guess I had a reputation as somebody that wouldn't run out on a situation like that. I didn't know what to anticipate, of course. I assumed that the boy was suffering from some form of epilepsy, and perhaps it was a dissociative personality disorder. He was manifesting, role playing his seizures and personifying them, whatever his illness was. So yeah, I'll stay overnight and observe with some trepidation. So I stayed overnight at the house. This is 1980. I believe, and stayed at that house overnight. Now, it's 1 a.m. I don't know why things break loose at 1 a.m., but they tend to. And 1 a.m., I'm starting to drift off. I'm on a sofa adjacent to the boy's bedroom. I hadn't seen one of his episodes. I hadn't seen this happen to him. Okay, suddenly I heard this shrill scream. I can't emulate it. I can't imitate it. I don't know how to describe it. A scream as if he was being boiled or flayed alive. I fumbled for the bedroom, the hallway light, the wall switch. His bedroom door, at that moment I turned on the light, flung open, and his body was thrown out of the room. It flew out as if two men had taken him up and thrown him out. He was spinning around on the floor like a dreidel. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. How could any human being do this? He's spinning around like breakdancing, but much more severe, and careening into the
Angus
wall.
Young, when he did that duck walk and he did a spin, AC/DC.
He could spin, yeah, round like a record. And he starts to crawl up the walls like Spider-Man. And he's doing things that are should be physically impossible. I'm standing there transfixed. What am I going to do? We're talking about maybe 45 or 50 seconds of observing this behavior and of this phenomenon. And I don't know what to do. At this point, his family came into the room, and he did a backwards flip onto the sofa where I had been reclining. And this deep guttural laughter came out of his throat. He's flapping his hands. Then he looked at me. He was wild, like rabies or something. He looked at me, glared at me rather, and he pounced on me. Now I tried to restrain him as gently as I could. I put my full 200 pounds weight on him. He pushed me right off. And then he came to himself, but he was panicked. This was no act. This was no performance. He was panicked. He was shivering and crying, calling for his uncle. As a solution, I recommended an expulsion, which I don't know why I thought I could make that decision, but a recommendation. An expulsion is a minor form of exorcism. It's not the solemn rite of exorcism. And you have more margin for how it's conducted. So a week later, in that same house, but this was on the third floor, that what I just described transpired. On the first floor, we conducted the expulsion, that exorcism. And wow, what a scene. I didn't know at the time that this boy's aunt, his great aunt, was Santorian from the islands, and she learned her craft. So there were Santorian elements. And started out with prayerful chanting. Seats were arranged in a semicircle. The boy, Lucas, I'll call him Lucas because that was his name. A makeshift altar was set up with holy water, and he sat to the side of that altar looking apprehensive, but smiling. Yeah. Okay, then it starts. The prayer stops because the floor shook. The house groaned. It was like an earth tremor. I thought it was an earth tremor or a truck going by, but it wasn't any truck. It was that the house shook, the floor shook. Then it became very silent, eerily silent. I was in the center of the semicircle. My chair with me in it slid back across the floor of the parlor. I hardly had a chance to be startled. My chair with me in it, look, nobody's pulling me. My chair went back, just me. The boy fell to the floor and went through his gyrations. And what transpired during the next hour would be difficult to describe and have the same impact as we felt then. It was horrendous. It was frightening. What he was going through, what he was enduring, what he was projecting. A religious picture flew off the wall. That was unsettling. They were Catholic, so a lot of, there was iconography there. And there was a picture of Jesus on a table, and the room was somewhat darkened. I don't know how, because they didn't turn out any lights. And I was hoping that the boy would look at that picture and become distracted by it. Look at Jesus. And I looked at the picture. I looked up again. A minute later, I glanced at the picture. The picture had turned upside down. which if there was a surveillance camera there, which there was not, it would have shown this picture flip. I didn't hear it. It was suddenly upside down. And all kinds of, I felt like I was being taken over at one point. I felt this onrush of emotion that was alien to me. I felt hostility, anger, panic. Something was telling me jump out the window. But I just concentrated on my own sense of self. I said, no, I did not expect this, but I'm not going to let it get the better of me. So I resisted it. And when I resisted it, it felt like in the back of my head, it felt like hands pulling on me. It seemed to go from me to a young lady in the next room because she fell to the floor. This young woman had started pulling her hair out. I think it transferred over to her. It was very real at the time. It was an isolated experience in that room, but those two rooms. But at the time, it was frightening. It was very real. I just wanted to leave. I said, my parents' house is, where I lived. My parents' house is 20 minutes away. There's food in the refrigerator. I just want to cut out and get back. But I knew if I left, well, that wouldn't inspire confidence in the people I was trying to help. And I would probably never be able to go into a situation like that again. If I ran out then, or even if I walked quickly out, how am I going to go back? I'd be too spooked. So I stayed with it. The climax of this episode happened when the boy started advancing toward me. He started I don't know what he had in mind or what it had in mind, but with that wild look in his eye, he started walking towards me. That was spooky. His eyes, his pupils were little dots. And I didn't know what to do, so I held up my hand and I said, stop. And he stopped. And I went up to him and I put my hand behind his head, just reassuringly. I said, it's going to be all right. And it was. It left him. Whatever it was left him. Now, there were a lot of psychological elements to that. He was brought up with that culture of believing that spirits can harm us and interfere with our lives. He was born in New York City, but he was embraced by the culture. He didn't have any accent. He was totally Americanized, but he had found a glove in a cemetery the year before. There's a single lady's glove in a West End cemetery. He brought it home with him. His great aunt told him that was the wrong thing to do, that he better put that back. All right, he went to get the glove and it was gone. It disappeared. I had the same experience in my parents' house. Glove appeared and then went to get it and it was gone. I don't know what it is with ladies' gloves. Left-handed glove too. And that seemed to bring something in, an attachment. Now, that was a formative time of his life. He's 14 years of age, establishing his identity. His parents were rather, well, they didn't seem it, but I'm sure they had their superstitions. He heard about the Santerian beliefs. When I was in Puerto Rico, I did see some freaky sights there. So it was, when it's a demonic situation, it's never totally spiritual. There's always some psychological issue, some unresolved conflict or some trauma in the person's past. And the demon has to be invited. We say demon because we lack clinical terminology. A wicked spirit. My definition of
inhuman spirit, correct?
Yep. Demonology to me is it's the systematic study of the lore and cultural traditions of wicked spirits. Now, there's academic demonology where somebody just studies it, doesn't go out into the field. Applied demonology is when you take calls and counsel people, or might go to the site. So I try to incorporate both of those, as does my partner in duo demonology, James Anito. He came up with the idea of duo demonology because it's he and me, and that's what we use. There's applied demonology and the clinical or academic demonology. So I should let you talk for a while. I've given you a couple of interesting stories here.
I'm interested as this. How many interactions have you had with wicked spirits or inhuman spirits or anything of the sorts? Are you still called out today for cases like that, or is it?
Yes, but I can't often go there because persons see the television shows and they expect the van to pull up and we unpack our equipment. I can't always get places. When I was cast in a series, The Haunted, not A Haunting, I've been in several episodes of A Haunting, but there used to be The Haunted. it documented how animals respond to paranormal influences. Back then, they would fly me around, so I get to go places. I didn't get paid for it, but it didn't cost me I got flown around. But I can't do that so much now. Out of all the years I've been at it, dozens of cases, I would say there have been, that I decided were of this nature, 5 demonic cases in all that time that I adjudicated as being authentically demonic. That doesn't mean spirits rising from hell taking control of people, but had the demonic leanings. So 5 in all that time. James Anito will say that too. He's had 5 cases that were decided that they were demonic. So it's rare. I mean, I'll get contacted and people say, I have a demon after me. Well, it's because it's inconvenient. A lot of people don't want these spirits in their house. My definition of a demon is it's a poltergeist with a really poor attitude. Because it seems demonic when things are thrown around and moved and all that. But and it's often hard to tell a poltergeist from a demon if there is any division. Your knowledge is only as good as your previous case, because you're dealing with individuals, so every time is different. But only 5 in all those years would turn out to be demonic, in my assessment.
Have you ever been a part of the rite of exorcism? Like, have you seen the exorcism take place? Have you been in the room as support?
Unofficially, yes. I wasn't supposed to be, but somebody asked for my, he's actually a seminarian. He was conducting a rite of exorcism, but it was brief. It was horrendous, but I was there observing. So I've been to plenty of seances, but only that one actual exorcism. But expulsions I've directed, I've participated in, So yeah, things do happen. Things that shouldn't happen. You assess it later. You analyze it. Well, part of my mind is always going like, why is this happening? How could this be? What's the mechanics behind it? But I actually have 2 photographs of a demon. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, you sent me one.
One, I still have to take it out of my photo files and put it in a file where I can transfer it. So there's the green demon and the red demon. I sent you the red demon.
Yep.
Now I tend to take more, as you can tell, more of a pragmatic approach to the paranormal. I like to think of myself as a parapsychologist or a student of parapsychology. It smacks of hubris if I say I'm a parapsychologist. In fact, Elise is studying at the Rhine Center, the J.B. Rhine Center of Continuing Education, and she's taken 4 courses. She's on her 5th. They're college level courses. They actually give you homework and they test you.
Wow.
So she wants a good grade, and it's in-depth paranormal study. So Elise, she won't call herself a parapsychologist. She's a student of parapsychology. She says she hasn't earned that yet. Yeah, it can be a long process to become a demonologist, and you have to decide what your interpretation of a demon is. Most demonologists with whom I'm acquainted assume it's the classical definition that these are fallen angels. In the great revolt in heaven, they were cast down with Satan, and now they war against mankind. My own interpretation is it's not kind of dramatic to think of these things ushering out of like some sulfurous cavern and minions of the devil. I don't know, maybe. I tend to think that every demon that has ever existed could fit on the head of a pin, because they're not all that physical. I think they are dependent on our human psyche for existence.
I have one question from a fan here that I want to.
Sure, please.
He's actually going to come on here in a second, but.
Let's see if I can read that too. Okay. As a professional, would Carl be willing to share his photos of the demons with me so I may show during my presentations? Well, I mean, send it to this person?
Yeah, he's actually coming on here shortly, I believe.
I don't know if you're able to show that, Louis, in Austin. If you can project that on your screen.
I'm not tech savvy, so probably not.
He can just write his contact info or whatever in the comments?
I'll have Jason get in contact with you. He's actually going to come on the show. You'll meet him here in a minute.
Yes, Jason's coming on.
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in that type there.
Yeah, I sent that for your edification so you could get a gander at it. But to the best of my knowledge, that's the visage of a demon. I don't know what else to call it. Its origins can be debated, but that was taken at a very tense moment when a homeowner was fleeing his house with his family.
Wow.
He had left his camera inside, and he had what he felt was his paranormal evidence on that camera. So he went back into the house to grab his camera, and he saw something standing at the top of the stairwell. That was a case I was investigating. He called me. It was 2 in the morning or so. He's, man, if you can come over here, it's happening now. Everything's flying around the house. We got to get out of here. We're hearing the voice. I said, well, look, it's going to take me 25 minutes to get over to your house. You're in Coventry. So they said, no, we got to leave now. So I heard this commotion going on. His wife screamed because some crockery hit her in the head, and which has to be unsettling when there's nobody throwing it. So Tony went back in to get his camera on a table at the bottom of the stairwell. And I'm glad he did. He had the presence of mind to take a picture of what was looking down at him. And that's what came out in the picture. So I say, I didn't take the picture. So I say, to the best of my knowledge, that's something preternatural. It could be the face of a demon if they manifest that way. Nobody can look at that picture without getting the chills. For some reason, everybody feels weird about it. And it's translucent. You can actually see some of the molding of where the wall meets the ceiling in the background. So it's very malevolent looking. And I have yet to post my green demon that someone submitted to me, a case I was working with. Usually they're invisible, but these manifested. Sometimes the camera will capture what we don't see.
So does that mean, like, I guess what am I trying to ask here? If you can get a picture of it, is that just they have more energy that they can manifest themselves in a way that they can be captured, or how does that? Basically,
the demon is elusive and doesn't want to be detected, doesn't want to be proven, certainly doesn't want to be photographed. They're rather camera shy. This, I think it was at the height of its power, and it showed itself to Tony, the homeowner, as he was leaving his house. There's something, it actually looks triumphant. It has an expression in the picture. I don't think it intended to imprint its image on the picture. Ghosts do that sometimes, the classic ghost, but demons, they don't want to be photographed. And I do acknowledge that, when we say demon, that's what we got to say. That's what we got. I could say non-corporeal presence,
right.
Influence. I like to say influence, but nobody knows what I'm talking about. So it's, I'm also a thonicist. I actually prefer that to demonologist, because thonicist is someone who, it's a Greek word origin. In Britain, they call it cathonicist. It's someone who studies the gods of hell, or the underworld gods, like Persephone and Hades, Hecate, the classical gods and spirits. But nobody sits up and takes notice if I say I'm a thonicist. They say, really? I mean, do you operate on people? Do you get it out? No.
He's a great doctor. But on the other line here, we got Jason of Paranormal Wisconsin.
Oh, good. Meet Jason.
Hey, there I am.
There he is.
Jason.
This is the second time on the show, by the way.
Hi there.
Our first conversation was outstanding, by the way.
Yep.
That was one of the best conversations I think we ever had.
Oh, yeah, it was a conversation, too. We just talked.
Oh, man. Jason is the front man of Paranormal Wisconsin. He is, like I said, he's a good friend of the show. He's so when last time we got on the show, we were looking for a guest, and I messaged him probably 8 hours before the show. I was like, hey, we want a guest. Is there any chance we can get you on? And he was good enough to get us, let us interview him. And he's a great dude, Carl.
Okay, good to meet you, Jason, and
Yeah, nice to
hopefully
meet
that
you
will be
too.
in person someday.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah, great information. I've got notes and notes everywhere on my desk. So
So I told Jace before he came on the show, Carl, that the first hour we're going to talk your ear off and get as much knowledge we can out of you. Then I'm going to call in Aaron Rodgers with 37 seconds left and let him close the game out for me. So Jason's my Aaron Rodgers, and I believe he's a big fan of yours. I really want to give him an opportunity to talk to you and meet you. So
yeah, Jason will do the talking.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess as far as where I come from, Carl, I'll give you a quick synopsis of what my life has been like. I was a police officer in the military, got out of the military, finished a college degree, and then I got hired with Sun Prairie Police Department, which is out here in Wisconsin, just outside of Madison. And on a warm September day, a 16-year-old kid came out of nowhere and ended up striking my squad car, causing me to retire. That was about 15 years ago. If you fast forward a couple of years after I retire, I got really bored and really depressed. So my family, my wife and my friend who I was a cop with for many years said, this whole ghost hunting thing has really taken off. What do you think? Because you're not investigating anymore, and I know you miss the work. What do you think about doing some ghost hunting? And I said, let's, we were watching the shows. It was in its infancy. And I think that Jason and Grant had probably like a tape recorder and they didn't really have much for equipment at the time. So it was starting to really take off, and we decided to piggyback off of that. And then it's been, in a sense, a love affair. We put on yearly presentations every year. We draw a huge crowd. We're probably one of the, at the risk of tooting my own horn, we're probably the go-to ghost hunting group or company pretty much in the majority of the Midwest. But don't get me wrong, there's other professional organizations, but we're real strict with what we do. We bring a law enforcement aspect to it. And that's kind of our in. When people find out we have such a long background with law enforcement, it really helps out with the trust factor.
Right.
And we're spoiled because we have wonderful equipment. As far as yourself, you kind of had to rely on your senses and your educational background, and that was probably really all you had to work with at the time when we were talking.
That's true. I mean, we had some very basic equipment at the time. I go way back, it depends, but always want some kind of audio recording. You always want a flashlight, but really not much. An EMF detector,
right?
Which isn't the most practical equipment. It's something.
Yeah.
But not a lot as far as, I didn't have any SLS camera back then, not infrared, no FLIR camera, forward leaning infrared, just didn't have that stuff, or it was beyond our price range when it was around.
Yeah.
We had somebody would bring an Ovilus. We were lucky with that if they had that.
Yeah, I've got the Ovilus 3, and I've got more people wanting to buy that from me because it's an obsolete piece of equipment. But
yes,
I would have to say I'm not going to kid you. That spirit box that they called it PSB or PTSB or whatever it's called it. We just call it the spirit box, but we sit on Ghost Adventures, and I think really what it comes down to is good old fashioned policing has really been the key factor with ghost hunting. When you utilize your senses, we use an archaeologist for our cases to find out past civilizations.
Wow.
Just good old-fashioned investigative work is the key to really solving these cases for people.
And you learn not to jump to conclusions, which is very tempting in ghost hunting.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of times people will say, "Will literally any bump in the night, they'll call it evidence," and we. Yeah, if we're in doubt, we throw it out for sure. So
people are so willing to believe too.
Yeah,
and you have, with your law enforcement background, you have a high credibility there. When I write out a case report, I want it to look like a police report, with no frills. No, not in my opinion. It's rather, hostile. Got eerie feeling in this corner. I don't put all that stuff in because it becomes very long and tedious. I'd rather get the facts down and, maybe comment on how people reacted. But I don't want a lot of supposition and subjection in it. I want a more objective report. Like, this is what we experienced. This is what we had.
Right. Yeah. After about 13 years of doing this, we're still going strong, and I'm obviously quite overwhelmed with cases, and we don't charge anything, of course. So we never make money, but I think that
I can empathize. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a fan question. If you guys got a second?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, who's good?
Be cool to get both points of view here.
Linda Chavez says, "What makes the difference in a demon and versus a ghost?"
Generally, the impression it leaves on you. A ghost is more, it has that human element. I think both are absolutely dependent on the human psyche. I don't think they act independently of human beings, observing them and being around them. But a ghost is more like, it's best illustrated by example. If you see a person in 19th century attire or old-fashioned clothes, or maybe they're dressed like the 1940s or so, they're a past era, and they're just going about their business. They may even look at you, but they're basically unaware of their observers. And that has happened a lot at touring sites I've heard of. And they'll say, "Who was that an actor there? That person in the old-fashioned clothes? I just saw him or her for a moment." And people who have been at that institution for a while will say, "Oh, that's our ghost." Yeah, people see him, people see her, or a hotel setting. Yeah, that's the ghost that's here. I saw a person. I didn't know why he was there in that room, but he walked to a wall and then he went through the wall. He just disappeared. That's our ghost. That's what the ghost is usually like. They seem either indifferent to us or mildly interested in us. The demon has a modus operandi. The demon is a presence. The demon makes people feel uneasy. The demon wants to stay.
People
A
wants to take
ghost can
over.
be angry. A ghost can be angry and appear to be a demon, but it may toss something, or it may, moan or something. And that's why people say, "Oh, it's a demon. I didn't feel right about it." Well, of course it's going to startle you. A human spirit will. I've been fortunate to see a ghost, 8 times. A few of those were the same spirit, but in 8 times in my life, I've seen a ghost. And not too many people can say that. Most of those times I was by myself, not every time. I had some corroboration. But yeah, I've seen a ghost. I have experienced a demon, but not seen one appear in front. At least I don't think it was. I've had, when I was in a dream state or half awake, I've seen an imprint of a demon. It didn't seem to be a fabric of my imagination. I could imagine what a demon looks like, but I can't say I've actually seen a demon. My co-author of, Jason hadn't seen this one. Hell, I don't think he did.
Oh yeah.
Shadow Realms, Demonology Handbook. You save enough box tops, you can get one of these days. And
That's still a thing.
chock-a-block full with pictures and anecdotes and all that.
Hey, we're young, but we're not that young.
Oh well, no, we used to do that when I was 1970s. My co-author Lana Jan Brock, she did see a demon. In fact, her situation, she has an identical twin sister. I have an identical twin brother. She was a witness, and other members of her family. They didn't believe her at first until they didn't believe the twins until they started seeing the demon. They were driven out eventually, or they compelled to sell their house. And that's the premise of an episode of Paranormal Witness. It's still in their top 5. I think it's in their top 3 scariest episodes. I think they were on for 9 seasons. And Paranormal Witness, it's called Deliver Us from Evil. And that tells their story, Lana's and her family's encounter with this demon in their house. It'll still give me the chills. But Lana did see a demon, demonic force, a demonic presence. To her, it looked like a desiccated corpse. It was almost reptilian, but corpse-like. And it seemed like it was trying to get into her house by melting through the door or through a window. It's trying to get through there. It started to dissolve. All that. She let out a yell, and father had called the police because she was so sincere about it. And then they thought, well, she's, adolescent. She's going to see things. But her twin sister saw something like that. and then her brother did. Then the mother and father saw it. So there was something in their house, and it was doing things. It was stacking up books, religious books. It was, and pushed a bookshelf against the door so they couldn't get in after Sunday service. So yeah, so Lana did see a demon. I don't know if I've seen shadow persons. I don't equate that with demonic, but I have seen a shadow person more than once.
Yeah, and I think we can really educate the listeners. What I deal with, the majority of them are private residences. So
Yes,
much of my clientele, I would say 80% of them are private residents, 20% are businesses. And I think we can really help the public by saying that don't err on the side of demon, because
right.
I'll give you a perfect case. Is we had a case in which a man committed suicide in his garage, and he had suffered from PTSD from World War II. And we found all this information out by happenstance. We found a booklet that explained the gentleman. His wake was held in the lobby of the house. The house was turned into a business, and we caught him grunting and yelling and screaming, and everything is on recorder. And the thing is they literally erred on the side of, it's got to be a demon, it's got to be a demon. Well, you have to understand that when people pass on, they're going to be the same way when they pass on as they were in the physical world. Okay, so they're going to carry out their emotions, their feelings, their behavior, which we have learned over the years. And a lot of times, if you have a person like that, they're going to act that way. That's, they didn't get the proper help, or while they were in the physical world, they didn't, so all these factors playing a part when they pass on. Carl, you would obviously know better than I would as far as what happens, in a sense, in the afterlife with these people. But for my sense, when we're dealing with this, a lot of it is if we have a child that passed on, that child probably doesn't know they're dead. They probably are just familiar with their surroundings. They take the same route. They walk here, they walk there. We had a case where a woman was having her hair pulled right in front of us. She said, "My God," she goes, "I got a demon attached to me." Turns out, I asked her, I said, "Have you ever had a miscarriage?" She said, "Yeah, I've had 4. I said, "Well, miscarriages can cause a child entity to attach to you because you weren't able to have a child. So you're giving off all that motherly energy, and this child out of nowhere, we ended up catching her on a recording. She's dancing and singing around this woman. When we played it for her, she's crying her eyes out. And it really comes down to just learning along the way." So.
Yes. We don't know why these things occur. We might not understand the mechanics, but they do. They happen. Whether that created a child spirit or brought one in, looking for a home.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, her hair was being pulled in front of us, and whatever the entity was at the time that we didn't know who it was yet, was tripping her husband. It would poke her husband while he was sleeping, and they just thought right away, it's got to be a demon. It's got to be a demon. And people got to understand that that's just not the case. It's very, very few and far between when it comes to
right. There is a difference. If it scares them, it's inconvenient. It's something they don't want in their house. They jump to the conclusion that it is demonic.
For sure.
Yeah, which is a whole different ball game, really. My kind of flippant description of a demon is poltergeist with a really bad attitude.
Bad attitude, yeah.
Because they can move things around. I hope I get to work with you sometime, Jason. We'll see what we can do.
What Jason said on our first show that what we did with him was, if you're an asshole in real life, you're going to be an asshole in death. And I thought that was a great picture.
It does seem to carry over, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I got like an odd question, because you guys are both professionals, and we obviously just went through this whole COVID thing. You think, like, being, obviously everybody's locked down. Obviously, Carl knows it best because you're out on the East Coast and they locked down the whole East Coast. Obviously, in Wisconsin, they said on whatever day bars are open, bars are packed in Wisconsin. And that's the truth. Nick's Bars, the day they opened up bars, the Tavern League opened up, Nick's Bar in Berry Mills was shoulder to shoulder. And that's not a joke. The people just need to get out and have a couple. Welcome to Wisconsin.
Yeah, push-pull,
Yeah. But with all the, obviously, everybody being home alone, not alone if they are alone, but obviously like being separated from public. Do you think that? You think like if a demon were to, get the pull to be, like malevolent, you think like during like that stagnant time of like people being home separated, you think that'd be more of a common feel for them, during times of isolation? That's a really bad way to put it, but I lost my way of words like 4 times and all that.
Well, based on reports I've heard, there was a big upswing in paranormal activity and in demonic manifestations. Then again, people have more time to be intrinsic and think about it, and analyze that bump in the night, or have a preponderance to think about that. It could. Demons being basically a thing of the mind, or connected to the human psyche. There's going to be a lot of thought about them. So the hauntings increased, the demonic incidents increased. That's another unfavorable result of the pandemic.
Right.
And who's to say it's not real? Because you need people for these things to happen, to observe them.
Right.
So,
and Carl hit it right on the head too. When you have a psychological imbalance or you're suffering from something, a lot of times your body does not have the defenses to be strong enough to put up that wall and say, I'm not going to allow these things into my head, into my life, or bother me. And it's and at the risk of getting a little weird, a lot of times when you're taking a medication, your medication can suppress the body from fighting off, like, let's say, certain viruses or diseases or what have you. So if you have a weakened immune system, those outside forces can come in and take you over. Well, the same is with paranormal too. If you're a person who is, in a sense, you don't feel like you're strong enough, you don't feel like you're able to handle this, you just don't have the strength, and you're looking for it, you're looking for that thing to give you that competitive edge or what have you. A lot of times when you leave your wall down and you don't have the forces behind you, you can become susceptible to these things. And when you add on the pandemic and the stress, and this person said that person, and this is going on, it just gets to be a convoluted mess for sure.
It begets more grief and tension. It feeds off, it spirals.
So when you talk about people like putting up their walls or whatever, is that something that most people do like subconsciously, or like do you have to? Because I guess I've never experienced anything like this or what, so I guess I'm not sure like how that works. Like, does somebody just normally like not think about it and they just happen to be strong enough that they don't get bothered? Or
I think there are some people that will never be bothered by the demons and spirits because they're just not interested in it, and if something happens, they explain it away. It doesn't occur to them it might be preternatural. There are some people that are immune to that. I think they're just not part of their scheme of things.
We have we had a case that took me about a year to take care of, and it involved a little blonde lady in her 20s, and the gentleman that was haunting her, I found out from his band members that he enjoyed white young blonde girls. Well, we have video of something crawling up on her bed, getting on top of her, and she goes to push it off in her sleep. And he actually came through our ghost box and said his name. But like I say, it took me, I was there all the time, year after, it took literally over a year to do. So to answer your question, Austin, when it comes to a person, if you want to call it victimized or just being haunted or what have you, it really comes down to the fact that sometimes it's unavoidable because there's a history in the house or something happened. Now, this guy committed suicide in her complex, and he just decided to attach himself to her. So sometimes it's unavoidable, and that's where we come in. We come in to kind of help them move on to wherever they're at. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a worthy cause, effort. Somebody has to do it. And it's poorly understood. So people want remedies. They say, how do we get rid of this ghost or this influence? There's not always a direct formula for doing that. It's on an individual basis.
Yeah. Carl, I just had a case, Carl, where the mom is highly educated, and she's highly educated. The husband is highly educated, and ghosts aren't biased. They don't pick on certain people. They don't pick on classes or nothing like that. And the mom says to me, she goes, "Well, so what do you do now? How do you get rid of them?" And I said, "Well," I said, "there's a process." Well, she starts crying because she thought that maybe we just throw this box on the floor, open it up, we step on a button, and this vapor comes out and sucks them in. And,
Don't cross the streams. Don't cross the streams.
And I told her, I said, you have to treat these people like they are, in a sense, they're just people that passed on. You got to talk to them. And it turns out it was 2 children, juveniles actually, that were hanging around in her kid's room. And we actually caught them talking about us while we were investigating. We had the kid's door closed with our cameras in there. And I've got them talking about us as we're investigating. And when she saw that, she's just like, I can't believe that. And now she's a nurse, a very high-ranking, educated nurse. So she thinks science. When it comes to this kind of thing, she's like, and you hit her right on the head, Carl. She didn't believe any of this crap. She's like, this can't be happening to me. Well, I'm like, sweetie, they're not biased. They're gonna reach out to pretty much anybody. So
there should be rules against that, but apparently there aren't. I mean, somebody who's under a lot of duress should not be harassed by these entities, should not be prey to them. Somebody who has mental incapacities or, developmental issues should not be prey to them, but it happens.
Right.
The one of the laws of the demonology is that a demon must be invited. Laws, Lores, that the demon must be extended an invitation to be effective, to enter an abode, to bother someone. But that invitation, that's a wide margin of definition for that. That could be somebody who's had occult practices that, went awry, or, is under a lot of stress at a certain time of their lives, and, starts cussing and saying, I wish this, I wish that, and just takes a downward spiral. That's a form of invitation. There's also the spirit board, a Ouija board, jury's out on that. They never bothered me, they're just there. But some people are very vulnerable to those influences. And, if they start getting answers on a Ouija board and start taking them very seriously, then that's detrimental to them. So the different ways the invitation can be extended, or even if somebody is very hateful, of their fellow humans, somebody has a really bad disposition. That's his form of, but it wasn't always like that. But starts getting really ornery. That's an invitation of sorts, So the different ways the demon can be called in. Some people are susceptible. Some people aren't.
Right. Yeah. It comes down to being in school. If you're dealing with a bully,
Yes.
you gotta stand your ground and let them know you're not going to put up with it.
Right. And the strength of the demon is that, well, it has 2 strengths: illusion. Projecting illusion, like I'm scary, I'm bad, I can come in the night, you don't know when I'm going to show up, be apprehensive. There's that, and there's persistence. Although even these spirits that we call demons seem to need to regroup and rest after an onslaught. If someone suffers demonic attack or oppression, the demon needs to retreat for a while, get strong again, it becomes depleted. I've seen that. It's been borne out again and again. So even the demon is finite. They're not omniscient. They need to rest and regroup, and then they'll come back. They can't work at it all the time, but they're persistent. They'll keep coming back. Like a pest in the house.
Right.
But eventually they run out of steam, I believe, and they'll go to someone else if they're resisted.
And
they're
I'm
not just
noticing,
extinguished, they'll go someplace else.
yeah, I'm noticing that with our cases too. After a certain point, the whole excitement of bothering the living person gets to be a bit old. And when we come in there, we, in a sense, we kind of, I guess you could say, bully them back.
Yes. Sometimes you have to take that attitude, not really provocation, but standing up to them like, no, I don't underestimate you, but I sure don't overestimate you. You got to
Right.
take that attitude.
Precisely.
I had a potential case in 2019. I was describing, Jason, I don't know how much you've heard of it, of my first full-blown demonic possession case. And I haven't had too many of those. And that took place in the Armory District in the West End of Providence. Well, 2 years ago, there was somebody that was living not in the same house, but only a few houses away on that same street. And they supposedly had some demonic element in their house, and they wanted to talk to Carl the Demonologist.
Mm-hmm.
So we exchanged a couple of emails, and my contact with them, put me in touch. He's actually my landlord now. And I said, well, I've got to confront it again. It's come down to that. There's going to be Showdown Part 2. And I'm going to wear my black trench coat and my fedora hat for this. And, this could become a movie sometime. I'm going to face it down again. But, taking it seriously, though.
Brad Pitt playing you, right?
Yeah, oh, well, I should be so lucky. Yeah. He's not too old to play me now, is he? No. And then the person just said, it's better now we talk to a psychic. It's not a problem. And I'm thinking, what a letdown. I thought this was going to be something really dramatic. And there it is again, and I must confront it once more. No, it just petered out. And so, well, that's not going to be a situation. So I guess they found resolution to this the problem. Psychic advised them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing too with psychics. You really got to be careful. One thing that we like to do is if somebody wants to be a true medium around us,
yes,
we'll take a thermal imager to them, and just to see if that energy signature will leave the person's body, and they're absorbing that. And we've, it's not too often. We see a lot with children who have a lot of energy around them. I've got thermal imagers of kids who've got energy just pouring out of the top of their head, almost like those wind things that you see with the hands like this.
Yes.
The energy just pours out of the top of their head. It's absolutely incredible. And we find that those children entities are drawn to them because they do have all that energy. So like I say, it's a learning process for us. And we're starting to really get educated on what to look for and really what to be careful of.
Yeah, it's hard. I find it difficult to work with psychics because it's such a subjective discipline. Like you largely have to go on the person's word. Some of their, what they say will be verified, but once they've established that they have the gift and they've gotten it right a couple of times,
right, then
something pops into their head. It's real. So I have to be dubious. I don't mean to totally discredit the field of mediumship. I remember when we were in, I think it was second or third grade, our visiting art teacher came in, had us take out our manila paper, we get a crayon, and she said, draw someone. And we said, well, what should we draw? I said, that's up to you. Whatever pops into your mind, you draw that. That's correct. So one person, I think I had an astronaut. Somebody else has a Native American, an Indian. I probably had some kind of monster, actually. But you see, to a medium, that popping into your head, one's head, they're getting a vision. They're receiving because they know they have the gift. So I'm receiving this. It just came to my mind, so it must be an emanation. It must be something I'm receiving. And it may not always be, so it's very tricky.
Yeah. I
went
to my grandmother one day. My family has Cree Indian in them, the French Canadian Indian, and I came to my grandmother, and I had said, I have to talk to you about something. Because I had a close relationship with my grandparents.
Yes.
I said, and this is when I was a kid. I said, I'm seeing these people walk into my bedroom. And there's a guy standing at the end of my bed, and I describe him, and she says, "Oh yeah." She says, "We have that in our family. We all see those things, And she says it's just one of those things, and it can be fun, it can be scary, but don't worry about it, we've really noticed that the Native Americans,
yes,
have a real draw to the, in a sense, if you want to call it the spirit world or what have you. And for them, it's very common. Yeah.
Wow, it's because they embrace that belief. That's part of their culture and heritage.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, I sound like I'm bashing mediums, but I have psychic premonitions. I have things that I dream them, they come true the next day, not infrequently. It's just once someone hangs out their shingle and calls themselves a medium, I think they lose a certain amount of objectivity.
Yes.
So they're difficult to work with, but I'd like to hear some results. Sometimes I like hearing these things, like, oh, what's your impression? What do you get here?
Right.
I just can't take it as bona fide fact unless it's supported by history.
It's a good piece of equipment to have. If you got
Yes.
somebody, because if you've got to have everything around you, there is so much that you need to do a thorough investigation, and having them can just obviously be one of the pieces of the puzzle.
Okay. All right. I would work with a medium. I would, but always with that margin of caution.
You have to. You have to.
Yeah. Analytic about it.
Yeah. Because I get probably about 5 people come to me every week saying, hey, I'm sensitive. Do you want to use me sometime? And a lot of times I have to turn them away because what they say to me is, I'm not going to get into what they tell me, but they just, like you said, you really got to be selective.
Yes.
What do they say?
I just told you.
You don't need to name names. I ain't going to tell anybody.
Well, we'd like to hear it. Yes. What do they say? Now you got us all curious, and I'm sure some listeners out there.
Yeah. Well, they'll get into a whole story about, I'm going to end up seeing a dead person here real soon in my sleep, and then this is going to happen to me, and and I had one person that was a medium, and she ended up wanting to date me, and it's just you really get a real variety of people.
Hey,
Oh, man.
Yeah,
lucky guy.
yeah.
Maybe
If
she
I-
said, "Can't you just see us together?"
Yeah.
You have the sight. The sight tells me this.
Yeah. It's they get pretty far fetched and they get a little odd. So but when you have somebody that's educated and has
Right.
the first thing I look for is good grammar. That's what I look for. And if they know punctuation and they can clearly, communicate, then I might look into
They
it
have a mind to them.
for sure. So
Yeah.
Carl Jace is going to bring us on an investigation one of these days.
absolutely.
Nice. Yeah.
Absolutely. I knew
Well,
I
don't
knew that
like.
was
I don't like to
You're
hurt people's
gone.
feelings, so it's hard for me to tell them, no, you're, well, I used to be kind of rough on the mediums when I was a member of TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society. Yeah, I was, they dreaded me. But, I genuinely don't like to hurt people's feelings and say, I don't believe a word you say, or, how do you know you're right? And I'll say that to a degree. But I remember a classic case of what to avoid in the medium. She would ruin investigations. It just happened to be a woman. It didn't have to be, but she would come into a house and she'd do a classic. All right, you have a male spirit and 2 female spirits and a child spirit. And one of the female spirits is trying to get to the child spirit. And the man won't let them. I heard this again and again from different readers. And the man won't let them
Sounds
leave.
very
They won't let
poltergeist.
the
The
females
movie
leave the house.
Poltergeist. That's what it reminds
He's
me
keeping
of.
them trapped. The male's keeping them trapped. He was like that in life, and now he's keeping them trapped. It's like, well, yeah, where's the newspaper report? Let's look this up. When did this happen?
right.
Someone died in this house. The house is 120 something years old. I'd be surprised if somebody didn't, at least a rat or something. Something died in there.
Right.
So I don't know if you watched the Warner Brothers cartoons, Bugs Bunny and all that. It was Spike the dog.
Yeah.
And one time Sylvester was giving up on eating mice. He decided to quit eating. His conscience got to him. Didn't want to eat mice anymore. And then the mouse was going through a situation. He wanted to check out. He wanted the cat to eat him. Take me. And so Spike the bulldog. He looks at what would be the camera. His eyes are little dots, like. Yeah. He types it out on it. It says Acme adding machine. Tack, 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 tack. It's yeah. Cat don't want to eat mouse. Mouse wants cat to eat him. And pulls out this paper. It just don't add up. But that Spike the dog look, that's how when I hear a medium ranting like that, I kind of go like that, you know.
Yeah.
But many are sincere, many are gifted. You know, I just don't meet them that much.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you guys got anything else?
Become a psychic medium.
You guys got anything else? Otherwise, I'm gonna. It's just about 10 o'clock for you, Carl. So I'm sure you want to get going home, huh?
Yeah, there's a few things left to do. Do a little grocery shopping late at night.
You got a bunch of files behind you to put away, right?
Yeah, that's ponderous, isn't it? The Johnston Historical Society. Yeah. But,
and you were telling me before the show, you have stuff in there from the 1700s.
There are some files in back of me. I had to poke for a minute, but there's like I could find. Actually, I know where it is. I could find a deed from. It's like 1750. I think it is 1750.
Wow.
There is a tombstone downstairs in this building from 1750.
Wow.
That has been repaired. You know, the vandals smashed it and all. It's the oldest one in the city of Johnston. Yeah, there's some really valuable records here. And Elise, the president of the Johnston Historical Society, JHS, she'll get calls and people want to know about is their loved one interred in a certain cemetery. What can you give me? She'll usually put together a folder for them, and she does it gratis. Of course, we get all kinds of strange calls, like people think it's, you know, the society is, you know, like the DEM or the DMV, you know, like a car just plowed onto my lawn. What are you going to do about it? There's a tree down. What are you going to do about it? We're not the Department of Environmental Management. We're society. We're a club. We're a research unit. And said, well, part of the tree is in a cemetery, so shouldn't you help with that? It's like, no. Ultra non-profit, you know. We can't have the equipment for it. We can recommend people you call. She gets calls like that a lot. So it's interesting work, though, that she does. I assist with. Yeah, so that's what all this is, the Johnston Historical Society files.
Well,
very old.
I would absolutely love to have you guys both on again at some point. This has been fantastic. I learned a lot.
It's gone by quickly.
Yeah, it has gone by really quick. I keep on like looking up at the live thing, and it's like, how has this been an hour and 47 minutes? I called an Aaron Rodgers 47 minutes ago. You know, like the last 47 minutes is like they absolutely flew by. So, but yeah. I'll let you guys both go. Enjoy your nights, and let's do this again sometime.
Keep in touch with us. There are ways if you want to talk to Jason and me, you know.
Yeah.
Ask your host.
Yeah, absolutely. In the future, let's do this again. I'm not saying, you know, maybe, you know, next time around, next year around this time, or, you know, whenever you guys want to do it. Obviously, Jason owes us a paranormal investigation, so we'll be in touch with him.
Yeah, we got to team up with Jason. Team Jason.
Absolutely.
We should do that. We'll call each other the A team. Obviously, Carl is B.A. Brackus, Jason Space, and we're the other two.
Yeah, I remember that series.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do it, compare notes and all that. And so if somebody wants to question me, I'm not that hard to find. I'm on Facebook. I'm probably the only Carl L. Johnson in the state of Rhode Island who's listed as a demonologist, so that'll narrow it down. Yeah. Oh. They're thanking us now. Thank you. Yeah. You're welcome. Our pleasure, believe me. You know?
Yeah, let's do that. If we can how often do you come to Wisconsin, Carl?
An airport once. I think that was it. In a layover. That's what I did. Well, I was filming for a paranormal show, though. Yeah. But, you know, contact me through one way is Panorama Paranormal as a Facebook page. I have a website, you know, you could post it. It's basically Demonology Incorporated or Duo Demonology, which their handle is just demonology.org, spelled the normal way with a Y. So, look me up, or through you guys, Austin and Louis, you can, pass the word around.
Absolutely.
I'd like to certainly keep in touch with Jason. We'll do that.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
So look me up, Carl L. Johnson, and the book.
Pick up the book, the handbook.
Is obtainable.
The book.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you guys very much for coming on. We're going to wrap her up. And
we'll do it again. We probably won't wait another year.
All right. Deal. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Thanks.
So that was probably one of the best 2 hours we think we've ever had in this show, man. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, we could separate again.
Well, I think we probably didn't. We were probably like this the whole time. I
Yeah.
would think.
Yeah.
Just the screen on the new setup. We
Yeah.
don't really fucking know how it works yet.
Obviously, Pure Steel Podcast, we touch on everything. So paranormal is one of our favorite things to touch. Because we're just blown away by it. You learn, learned a lot.
You learn a lot of stuff that you don't normally think about,
And yeah, as always, we are the Pure Steel Podcast, so we're going to bring you guys the greatest knowledge we can bring you. In other words, I want to touch on some sports. Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder this past weekend. What a barn burner that was, by the way. Fury obviously wins via knockout in the 11th round, but there was 7 knockdowns in that fight. Wilder knocked down
between the two of them.
Yeah,
I didn't watch it. I should have watched it, but
no,
I
it's
didn't.
so good. Wilder knocked down Fury twice in 1 round, and I believe another time.
Yeah, I think it was like twice in the 3rd round.
Shut up, Wyatt, prick. Just this is the kind of stuff that my brother spews at us during the show.
Click at that one there made
Yeah.
me laugh.
Yeah,
Big time.
this is what he does to us this whole time. I don't know if this is supposed to be the roast of us during this awesome show we had tonight, or this is what we get the whole time. Yeah, thanks, Wyatt. Appreciate it. You're a good guy. Good job wiring this up, by the way. The house hasn't burnt down yet. Wyatt, at the end, what blew me away, obviously, Fury beat Wilder. What blew me away was at the end of the fight, Wilder refused to shake Fury's hand.
I watched the interview of Tyson Fury and that they were talking about that specific situation. And yeah, that's just such a low class thing to do. I mean, that's the trilogy too. Like, was it a draw the first time?
The first time was a draw,
Okay.
but I had, in my honest opinion, Fury won that fight.
Right. And that's what he said too. He said beat him 3 times. They're not going to fight again now.
No, it's done. Fury's on. I'm going to imagine Fury by, I would say we'll call it 3rd quarter of 2022. Fury will be fighting to unify all the titles. Be the first one to do it since Lennox Lewis.
Oh, really?
Him
and Anthony Joshua must not be the same.
Anthony Joshua lost, so he is out. I forgot the guy's name. I need my fact checker here.
Yeah, what happened to him?
Yeah, people look at Anthony Joshua and they go, "Oh man, this guy."
Well, he got beat. I can't never remember that guy's name.
I can't pronounce this guy's last
the
name.
dude what the hell is that guy's name? He got beat by the first time.
Ruiz, Anthony Ruiz.
Anthony Ruiz.
And he
came
wants
in looking like a kid from a fucking Jimmy Neutron cartoon and beat him.
Yeah, well, you know what? Ruiz is a very skilled boxer, man.
Oh yeah, I'm not knocking the guy, but he was just. You look at Joshua.
I think if you look at like Tyson Fury too, like this is the baddest man on the planet, but he has a dad bod for days.
Oh yeah, and he hasn't. I didn't know that he hadn't fought in 2 years. This is his first time in the ring in 2 years.
Who, Fury?
Yeah.
No, he fought Wilder last year.
Literally.
He fought Wilder last year. They still at the stock.
You can pull up a video of him literally saying,
I hate
2 year out the ring.
I hate to prove you wrong some days, but here it is.
Don't look up the info. Look up what Tyson Fury said. Don't look up when he fought him last. I'm just saying.
Facts are facts, and that's the way it's going to be.
Literally, there's a video of him saying that.
Probably the first time he's been in a dogfight in 2 years.
Whatever.
Hats off that trilogy. They actually lived up to the hype. It did. That's
the second one. That second one didn't go all the way though.
No, Fury knocked him out. I believe in the 7th round. Yep. And shit. But I want to touch on that because combat sports is our base, man. That's how we started. Started out as an MMA show and got into boxing a little bit. How about Wisconsin, Ohio State this year?
As far as what?
They both suck.
Yeah. It's fucking. That's not any different than any other year.
Frickin' Penn State and Iowa leading the Big Ten. Well, good for them, anyways. But
Iowa's going to win the whole thing. Bama got beat.
I thought
fucking.
I felt like Bama was just a touch overrated.
Who the fuck did they get beat by?
Ole Miss, wasn't it?
No,
No,
it
Texas
was
Tech or Texas A&M again.
Yeah, Texas A&M. Not again.
Well, they got
It was
upset.
because it was like the first time in like 25 years that.
No, Johnny Manziel beat him.
No.
Yeah, Johnny Manziel. That was his claim to fame, the upset of Alabama. Roll Tide. Roll them Tide. Hell yeah.
I don't. Whatever.
How about the mini fridge? How
What
cold
else is in it? It's cold.
Whiskey.
Do you have any beer in there?
No, not yet.
What the fuck?
Happens.
Whatever.
I'm only human.
Yeah.
But hey, I hope everybody enjoys the new setup. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the show. I had a blast. Learning like that.
Yeah, Carl, you can talk.
Humble human
A
being.
lot of good stories.
Yeah. Well, he's been paranormal investigating longer than we've been alive.
There's a lot of people have been doing a lot of things longer than we've been alive, Louis.
I know, but investigating the paranormal. I mean, just the stuff with the parent house and the conjuring home, I guess we can call it.
Yeah.
But hey, on that note, thank you very much for watching the Pure Steel podcast.
Yeet.
As always, we are Pure Steel.
And sex appeal.
Peace out.